I'm Brandon P. Myers. If you're not me, then something is seriously wrong. This video should be viewed in the event of an emergency, but above all else, it's best that I tell you what I'm about to say at this point in time. What you're about to hear is a history of my life. My history as a Metrolina warrior. It's one of the greatest journeys I ever had, and it was part of the 8 greatest years of my life, and I feel like that I should reveal some secrets to you tonight. I first came in August of 2011. At that time, I had just been through 3 different schools for middle school, and 2 of which were from a school that had merged together, Gar Christian Academy and Resurrection Christian. That's what created Charlotte United Christian Academy, but my parents took me away and sent me to a community service school. And after that 8th grade year, which I didn't like, there was some uncertainty of what would happen to me in high school. And that's when my parents found Metrolina. By the time I was going there, they were overcoming a horrific tragedy that one of their students had been killed over the summer in an ATV accident. I didn't know that until later in the year, but I came on a rainy day, which I was scared and I didn't know anybody. I was to be placed in the LRC program because I had autism. And from then on, I just didn't know what to think because I was so nervous. Then I went into my first class, which was ELP, and I had no idea at the time that those guys were sophomores. But they wanted to put me in a history class because I had such an interest in U.S. history back then. I still do now, but a lot has changed ever since. And so I walked into that classroom and we were handed this test to study up on our American history. And the teacher, she gave us several questions, one of which was the name of the Chief Justice of the United States, and I wrote down the right answer, but she was out of date, and so she found out that I had gotten it right after all. And that's when it began. It began for me to make so many new friends on that campus. So as the months went by, I met so many new people in so many new grades. Many of them have found a place in my heart. I started with Brett because he was on my cross-country team, and you know, he actually warmed up to me the moment I met him, and so did both Breeden and Cranford. And there were many others who warmed up to me the moment I stepped onto the campus. I mean, there's also Hilton and Caleb. When I was in PE the first day, they didn't even know what I was capable of. Then I became the most dynamic person they ever saw because I would jump in front of the stretches, and everything about this class, it was spot on because it focused on our physical fitness. And Coach Leopard really understood that I was built for this class. I went on to meet many new people, obviously Demetric, Megan, let's see, Alyssa was another, and we made so many great things happen, like putting together a script in Bible, reading through Johnny Tremaine all summer, and making sure that that all our work was done, especially in study hall, and I'm never going to forget that. That freshman year was also fantastic because I got to do a new sport. My parents forced me to run cross country, which I didn't want to do, but after they saw that I had run 7:51 on a mile and practicing for the presidential fitness, they wanted me to be a runner, and no one would let me run because I had autism. Then in August, I met Coach Honeycutt, and he brought me in right away, and it wasn't until later on in the season that I made so many new friends there, and that season was a special one. Not only did we host our first Hare and Hounds, but we also traveled to a great meet in Wilmington, which my dad drove the bus, and I got to meet so many new people, and it was one of the best experiences of my life because Coach took us to the beach, and we managed to have great times at that meet, and I PR'd in that meet. That was one of the many PRs I got. Of course, I can't say enough about what happened next because I think we won Union County, but I will say that year was our very first cross-country conference championship. The top 7 all dominated the race. They set school records, and we won the first of so many conference titles, 3 of which I got to be a part of. So as we enter into the winter season, I wanted to try basketball because I had played the sport before and I was looking to get onto the school team. And obviously, many of my friends were playing on the JV team, especially since we were freshmen. I walked in there. I knew one of the coaches because I had worked with him before at Charlotte United Christian Academy, and now he was going to be the head coach of the JV team. But I couldn't find my fitting, and much to my dismay, I failed the tryouts. And after that, I was determined to get back, and I wanted to practice harder. I did play rec league that year, but I wanted to be done with it so I could focus on high school basketball. So then I had my first season in track, which I didn't really fare out too well because I was very slow and I finished last in most of my races. Although we had great people on that team. I mean, I remember meeting Josh and Matt Gott and Harrison. They were some of the best guys I ever met because, they really showed that they can look out for me in any way. And even though we had a successful track season, we ended up tying in the conference meet with Covenant Day. The meet came all the way down to the final event, which was the 4x4, and we had the best 4 sprinters we could have, and they all were neck and neck the whole race, and Covenant Day beat us at the line. I thought we had lost the meet, and I was devastated, but then I found out we had tied, and that was our first track and field championship, so I'm okay being co-champions, but everything was uh, everything was a closure to me because track was one of the best things I ever experienced, and I couldn't wait to do it again. After the summer was over, I was so ready to begin sophomore year. And that year, I was hoping to be in classes with my friends because the year before, I had been in the best Bible class I'd ever been in because I made so many new friends there. And, you know, we studied the Old Testament. We did some sketches. We wrote a parable. And now I was determined to follow up on that. But when I arrived for my sophomore year, I could see that I was in different classes. And then I started, as the year went by, I started struggling. I couldn't find my footing in all these classes, and, the assignments got hard, and I couldn't really talk to anyone. I was drawing a lot, which wasn't a good idea for those who are in class. I would recommend you don't do that, so then that would cause you not to pay attention. But worst still, everybody ignored me, and I was worried that perhaps my shenanigans had gotten old. Now that I'm older, I wouldn't have really cared, but even so, I wanted to do better in all that. I did meet some new people. I met Eli, I met Casey, I met Stowe, I met John. Eli was one of my dearest friends because during the cross-country season, when we won conference again, he was one of my biggest cheerleaders. And speaking of that, I can remember a meet we did in Hickory Grove when we were told to do a tempo race, although the athletic director, Mr. Plyler, he told me that we should go fast in the race, and since he was the higher authority, I obeyed him. And I was making express time. I was beating most people, and as I was coming out of the forest, I heard this cheering going on. And some of the middle school runners who I made friends with were cheering me on to the finish line, and I still consider that the proudest moment of my cross-country career. They cheered me, and I managed to get to the line without any harm, and I was so proud. But yet the struggle of the sophomore slump remained because I failed basketball tryouts again, and I was failing most of my classes. And then I did manage to turn it around in the second semester because I made a new friend in a guy named Paris who I didn't really know very well up until the start of the second semester. But then we went to Atlanta on our sophomore trip. And that trip was the highlight of my year because I got to know him and I got to know all the rest of the guys. We got on camera for a news channel, and unfortunately that was a hoax to them, but obviously that trip was one of the best moments of my life because I got to bond with my classmates, and my sophomore year ended on a good note. So I was entering junior year all excited because I had some new friends. I was becoming one of the fastest runners on the cross-country team. I was in some classes which had had many of my friends in it, especially a Bible class, which we were studying the New Testament, and so many of my friends were in that class, and I was so excited to, get to grow closer to God with them. And Brett was in that class, and that was my first time ever in class with him. I was so ready to do stuff with him. In fact, he was back on the cross-country team, and Noah was back, and we had one of the best teams in years. But unfortunately, I didn't even know that everyone was going to turn their back on me again. It started during the Hare and Hounds, and I went too far in trying to be friends with Eli. I tried to get in his business, and I got in trouble for that. I won't say how, but Eli turned his back on me for a long time. And then a few weeks later, I found out that I was transferring classes. I was headed to the lower level class, and that got me angry because I was really enjoying the Bible class I was in, and everybody was being so nice to me, and I had big plans for that class. I was in the middle of a great project, but I wasn't there to present it with them, and so I went to the other class very upset. I had to take a geometry class as well, and I didn't even know anything about that. And the cross-country season didn't turn out too well either, because we got third place in the conference meet. That season, everybody was turning their attention toward a young guy named Tate. He and his brother had joined the team, and we, I warmed up to him right away, and he really took everything by storm. I watched his time go down 22, 20, 19, 18. He was only a 7th grader, and he was destroying the course. I didn't know how to keep up with him. And obviously, I needed to figure out some way to, make an impact with this team. So as we entered the conference meet, I had already gotten 4 PRs that year. I was having the best season of my career, and I was very close to breaking 20 minutes. And obviously, as we entered the conference meet, I was in a position to get an alternate spot. But the other guy who was aiming to get it was Josh Street, and he was a sprinter, but he had embraced distance and was now one of our best runners. I had to be one of the top 3 runners to be chosen. So the conference meet was at McAlpine, and I was in the JV race. I was more than ready to get another PR, and so when the gun went off, I was charging to the front. I kept my head ahead. Actually, I kept my head up and my eyes straight forward, and Josh was trying to charge me down. I just kept pace with him the whole time, and he almost caught me. But then I found my inner strength and charged in front of him, and we were neck and neck all the way to the finish, and somehow I sprinted ahead and got him. And I got a 20-22 in the race. So now the question remained, was I going to states? Well, as it turns out, I did. While I was on a college visit at College of Charleston, I got word from the coach that I was headed to the state meet. And I couldn't believe it because I was a backup runner, and Brett and this guy named Kyle were also going to be a part of that. So I was so ready. I couldn't believe it. And I decided to head to states. And really, what the matter of the fact is, that was the best cross-country season I ever had, and that race capped it off. So, as we headed into the end of junior year, everything was just getting worse for me because I was denied another basketball tryout from my parents. They did not want me to risk my my skills on another basketball tryout, especially since all my buddies were headed to varsity, and my grades were dropping again. There was also a trip to Charleston coming up, and I had just asked this girl to prom, the first prom that I would ever attend. Now, you might think this is crazy, but the trip to Charleston was almost called off. I would have been okay with that, but as I was doing my homework over the night, my mom gave me the call. She gave me a call and she said, "Brandon, you're going to Charleston. Your trip is on." And so I got everybody in a group chat, and I told them we're going to Charleston, and I was super excited. As a matter of fact, as I was doing rec league basketball that year, I had my phone set on the stands while I was practicing, and everybody was texting each other nonstop. They were excited as I am. Yeah, that group chat ended up being a highlight that year. So we went to Charleston, and Mr. Burnett led the trip. And, that trip was another highlight for me because I got to experience so much. I got to experience a aircraft carrier, a mall, a ghost tour. My buddies got to try some of the hottest sauce there ever was, and we just toured the city in the rain, and that was awesome because I got to get to know my friends a little more. I congratulated Mr. Burnett at the end of the trip, and then I continued on with the year, and everything got better because I did track again, and we had a very decent track team. So many of the new students had arrived for the track season, especially from football, and they were just blowing away the competition in all these meets. We managed to be victorious. In many of them, I couldn't get my time up, but I still managed to run decent miles in 800s. And then there was the prom. The prom was an overwhelming night for me, and I was really enjoying it. And then the most ridiculous thing happened. They crowned me the prom prince. I didn't even know why they did that. I shouldn't have deserved it. In fact, I've stowed away the crown and sash in storage. But that was the only prom I ever attended, because after that night was over and as we got ready for senior year, I thought, never again. But eventually I was able to put all that behind me because I was able to get back on the track, and we were able to beat Covenant Day for our first track championship individually. I mean, I got to hold the trophy, and we got this team picture, and I mean, I was so happy. We were so ecstatic. We were so excited, and I'm pleased to say that Metrolina has won a championship in track ever since that year. Now, when you're in high school, obviously the thing you're looking forward to the most is senior year. And there was so much uncertainty about that year because nobody thought I would go to college. I had just spent a summer of my first official part-time job and getting my wisdom teeth removed. And obviously, so much had happened. And the worst part of all is that it's that I was entering the cross-country season as the captain. The soccer program was back at Metrolina, and I lost two of my senior captains to that team, and Noah declared he was done with running. I tried everything to convince him to stay, but he wouldn't. So I had to carry the heavy burden of being a senior captain, but ultimately the runners in the grades under me were the best. I was playing the part of the retiring war veteran, and obviously we really ran hard that year. Unfortunately, so much happened that year that really put up the ambition of this team. Some runners cursed at the county meet, and others climbed on the roof of the hotel in Wilmington. And I found that out, and I told Coach that they were climbing on the roof, and so he punished us during the season. He punished us with military-like workouts in the mud. We had to run very hard, and it ended with a game of Catch the Senior, where he gave me a 5-minute head start, and I had to outrun everybody on the team. So I held my ground up until up until a mile and a half, and then they passed me, and so I couldn't hold my place for long. And so two runners beat me to the 2-mile mark, which was the finish. And even though I got congratulations, I still felt bad for what had happened. We did win conference that year, ultimately thanks to Tate and everybody else. I mean, I got to go to states again because my guess is Coach wanted at least one senior to back up the runners. I wasn't the only senior. There was this other girl who managed to be an alternate as well. But even so, that season, my last in cross country, I was thankful that it was over because that was an enduring season for me. But all throughout senior year, even as we had the retreat to Bonclarken, I wanted to focus on, so much, writing one last enduring legacy for Metrolina. I tried out again for basketball. In fact, my dad reluctantly agreed to let me do it. I almost made the team. I mean, I wasn't so upset that time because I wasn't surprised. I figured I was not going to make it. I had practiced so much since my parents wouldn't let me try out the year before. And so I wished my friends luck and move on. But I ultimately struggled in my work, and it looked as if I would not get into college. We had looked at 4 universities up until that point. It was UNCG, South Carolina, College of Charleston, and CBCC. The 2 South Carolina universities turned me down, and so it was either going to be UNCG or CBCC, because if you go to a community college, they accept you right on the spot. And somehow UNCG said I was going to get an offer. And at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do, because I wasn't so sure if I wanted to do college. I hated being away from my parents, and I had that full ambition experience at a summer camp, being away for 2 weeks, and I hated being away from them. I wanted to be close to home, and that's why I was leaning towards CBCC, but my parents said I should go to Greensboro. And when it looked like that my back was against the wall, I decided to go through with it. It wasn't in my best interest, but I chose UNCG. And I was completely upset with that, because I wanted to be with my friends in other colleges. You know, some of my classmates did get the opportunity to get to UNCG, but unfortunately, I didn't see them very much while I was there. But as such, the rest of senior year, I somehow managed to get a C average in my classes, and I was able to pass them. And then, you might find this shocking, but I graduated with a diploma. And I got the Head of School Award, and somehow I was able to walk across the stage, and, you know, I was so thankful to have graduated, because, I mean, I thought I was going to have to spend the rest of my life in the workforce, and somehow I got to go to UNCG, and from there on, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. With Metrolina's success in cross-country and track, and after some discussion at UNCG, I felt like I had to come back so I could coach, and so I could make a much bigger impact than before. And ever since I came back, it's been nothing but success. Metrolina has won conference in track every year, and we already have championships with our girls in cross-country. And last year, the boys won their title. Now, I'm fighting for my job, and I'm trying to rewrite my life again. So, should anything happen to me, the runners of Metrolina, cross-country and track, are responsible for carrying on the legacy that me and my friends started. May the grace of God be with you.